today's class, you don't have to have any props, but if you have a block or like a stack of books, there's two places where that could be useful. Especially toward the end, I would prefer to have one just so that you can lift up your hips a little bit and just let your legs float upward. If you don't have a block, like any sort of a bolster or a rolled up towel even, that'll totally work. Take a moment to go find a little stack of something. So let's go ahead and make our way all the way down to a comfortable laying position. Just make your body at a very comfortable place where we can completely relax. Letting our breath flow in and out. Inhale deeply through the nose. Exhale your preference, out the nose or out the mouth. And take a few really good deep inhales and exhales, helping our body become more relaxed and more receptive to our class today. We're still continuing to breathe here. I'll take a moment to connect us with our intention for today. With it being very, very much in the spring swing of things, I've noticed this week suddenly the temperature spiked quite a bit warmer than it normally is. And you feel this spring kind of weather in the air, which is interesting because we had such a late snow just a couple of weeks ago. But very much I'm feeling this spring energy. And for me, spring has to do with these energies of detoxifying and helping to cleanse our system, preparing for this wonderful season of growth in the summer that's to come in our lives. And so a major focus, a major way that we can help our body to detoxify is working with the liver and the gallbladder meridians. That's a meridian pair. They work very closely one with another. And so here I'm going to help us mentally trace where that meridian travels in the Chinese meridian system. And so then when we're heading into the different stretches, you'll physically be able to see, okay, we're stretching this part of the meridian. Okay, now we're moving upward to the next segment and up and up and up, getting deeper and deeper as we trace along it, helping to deeply stretch through that entire meridian system. And so that's our intention for today. So perhaps think of this as a physical detoxifying class, or perhaps think of an energetic system that needs that cleansing, some different emotions or thoughts, patterns that have been happening through your life, and we're trying to cleanse our system of that. And so as we're mentally tracing this liver meridian, it starts at the big toe on each foot. It travels up the inner part of the foot, up the inner part of the leg, up to the hip. It circles around at the reproductive organs and then travels largely through this right side up to the liver, which is on the right side. Once it gets to the liver, that part of the meridian line ends, and there's another line that travels up, like close to the ribs, all the way up the neck. And it travels, there's a part that goes by the mouth and a part that goes by the eye. And that's where that one ends. And so think of this like, actually, I find it fascinating that it ends at the eye, because if you think of jaundice, if you have ever known somebody that had it, their eyes start to turn yellow. And so I wouldn't normally think in Western medicine that the liver and the eyes are actually connected, but that Eastern medicine connects the dots for us with that liver meridian. So that's the area that we're going to be working on, largely through the inner part of the foot and the toes. And so to help us get started, I'd like us to start bringing the knees into the chest. A hand on each knee, do a few little circles. The hips going left and right, just to kind of help our spine loosen up, getting prepared for what's to come. And then I would just want us to take a moment to start warming up the toes. The very first stretch we're going to do in just a moment, the one where we hold for an extended time, is a toe stretch. And so I want us here to begin extending the legs up to the sky, Your legs can be straight or nice and bent, just however high you can take it, so that we're already helping to work gravity, traveling the blood down that meridian line. Holding on just in a comfortable way behind your legs, let your toes trace circles. This can be any kind of circle. You can switch directions, your toes can go in the same direction, whatever is helpful. And we're starting to wake up the toe part of it. Especially think of the big toe. How much can you get that big toe to move around? What is its range of motion in all directions? Just take another beautiful chance to be with that area, that beautiful meridian end. Good. And with that feeling nice and good, nice and alive, let's bring our knees in, roll over to the side like a fetal position. Take a beautiful breath into the body. And with the exhale, we're going to press into the ground, rising up, and we're coming into a toe stretch. And so there's different options for different people. For some people, if you just stay in a kneeling position and tuck the toes, this might be plenty of stretch for your feet already. Some of us might be up more into a tabletop spine, our hands planted down. If you can take a little bit more weights, you would start to sit your hips back. That already starts to deepen that toe stretch. And occasionally there's people that can come all the way up with your entire body weight pushing down on the feet. Try to reach down, including even the pinky toes in this, but know that this stretch does focus largely on the big toe area, and that's where our focus is for a moment. So as we're right here, begin to let some breaths flow into the body and out of the body. We're here for a little while. Know that you don't have to stay completely still the entire time. You can absolutely come out of it, even rolling your feet out. Maybe come back into it if the rest of us are here still here at the time that you've had that break. But let ourselves breathe and imagine sending light, sending love, sending health into the very end of this meridian that we're working on, knowing that the more we can help the meridian, the more we're naturally just helping that detoxifying and cleansing process in our body happen. We won't be staying here quite as long as some of the other poses. It's already getting intense. Let's see if we can be here as relaxed mentally as possible for about 5 more breaths. Deep and full into the belly. Relaxed either out the nose or the mouth, your preference today. Good breath in. And with our beautiful exhale, you're welcome to start releasing. I tend to like coming onto hands and knees and giving those feet a nice break. So roll them out. Some people like to pound them out, getting a little bit of a blood flow action going into the tops of the feet. So anything that feels helpful and that feels kind, take that option. Good. And when that feels alive, we're going to continue tracing up the foot. So we're starting to travel a little bit further up that meridian line. So what we're going to try to do is try to sit all the way back onto your feet. If this is not too intense already, for some people this is about where you can go. If you can still go more, you have this option to plant your hands behind you. Even try to lift the knees up so that you really stretch through the top of the feet. Now again, you can come in and out, and if it's not working, go ahead and just come to a seated position and start manipulating your feet, just helping to stretch through the ankle area. And again, we won't be here too long. This one can be kind of intense. See if you can back off to a point where you can easily sustain it at least another minute or so. It's interesting how powerful the breath is in helping us relax through a very deep, very intense stretch. Our breath helps to send that signal to our body. Okay, I guess this isn't torture, this is a good thing, I guess, because otherwise she wouldn't be breathing so calmly and so relaxed. Try to be with it. We're almost there with the breath flowing. Imagine continuing to send light a little bit further up the foot to that part of the meridian line. Let's go 3 more breaths. Another good inhale. A nice exhale. Once again, gently set the knees down. Help support your body coming up and over. And once again, bring some movement back to that fascia that was just being stretched so deeply. The next part of the meridian travels up, starting to get to the inner part of the leg. And so that's where our next focus is. We're taking a very wide knee child pose. So child pose is the one where you're sitting back on your feet, you're resting your forehead down. But with this one, we're going a bit wider, so we have that additional stretch. It's almost like a frog pose, only we are trying to set our hips back. Super, super, super wide knees. If you need some extra padding, you can always fold your mat in to give your knees just a little bit more gentle activation. Gentle padding, sorry. And so as we sit our hips back, we're trying to rest down onto elbows, or if you can set forehead all the way down onto your hands, that's okay as well. This is a place if you happen to have a bolster where you could slide your bolster in to find an even more restorative version, just kind of resting down onto the pillow. And again, if this starts to get intense for you, remember that you can be patient, you can come in and out. Maybe try not to go to 100% of your maximum, but try to get to a spot where you're starting to feel the stretch. Because if you hold in a gentle place for this extended period of time, it's much more gentle on the body, helping us to breathe and to relax through the time. So as we're here, we're imagining that line that's tracing up the inner part of the calf and inner part of the thigh. Imagine helping and adding light to that area. So keep the breath going. We're still here breathing and relaxing. I'd like us to take a moment to just check in with how the body is doing. If already these first 3 things that we've done have been extremely intense for you, sometimes I take that as an indication. Perhaps that's my body's way of telling me that I need to put more focus in that liver meridian. I need to be kinder to my liver on a physical level and on the deeper levels. The emotions that start to come up with the liver meridian are emotions of anger and stress and needing to take care of yourself. So perhaps these are emotions that are very alive for you right now. Just imagine what those emotions are doing to your physical body. What emotions do we let ourselves play with constantly in our mind? And does that help me? Emotions have an interesting reaction in the body because they start to release different chemicals. Happiness releases, serotonin, endorphins, different things like that. Versus stress, anxiety, fear releases cortisol. And those chemicals start to impact our body in different ways, bringing us either to rest and repair mode or fight and flight mode, taking energy out of the digestive system and into the muscles, where the muscles get tight and tense as if we have to fight something off at any moment. So what energy has been traveling through your system? And is that what we want to be floating in our system? Or do we wish, starting at this moment, at least for today, to change our focus, to change our thoughts? Now we're coming here to these last 2 deep breaths in this stretch. So let the inhale go deep into the belly. Exhale out the mouth or the nose, your choice. Beautiful. We're taking ourselves out of this super gently, super slowly. It gets so deep into the fascia that the body doesn't just want to jump right out of these types of poses. So gradually begin to bring the knees back together. Once the knees are together, back up to this kneeling position. Give your hips some motion. So maybe you start off just rocking hips left and right from this kneeling place. Maybe you begin to circle the hips all the way around. And then you reverse the direction. Think of this as a wonderful kindness to the body. Another good breath of this gentle movement. And then as you're ready, we're going to make our way down to a seated place. Now in the seated postures that we're taking, if they're difficult for your body for any reason to maintain a seated place, know that you can always sit up on the books, the bolster, the block, whatever you have available for you today. You're welcome to sit on those, and that will make it more comfortable for the hip area. So from here, we're taking a shape where our left knee is underneath, and we're trying to see if we can get the right knee to stack on top of the left knee. Some people, their hips are able to do this. For some people, it needs to be wider, a little bit more stacked, or even drop down to cross-legged position. So I'm gonna let it be up to you how deep your hips can take this. The big indication is sitting bones being able to be on the ground. If they're having to lift, back off to one of the easier positions. Now, as we're traveling up, imagine this meridian of the right leg traveling up the thigh, and we're trying to get up to the liver. So we're planting the left hand, and then this right arm is going to stretch up and over, and this is the pose where we're going to play with. Now this top arm might get tired, so at any point if you just want to kind of drop the elbow and the arm to rest on the head, that's okay. Or if you need to take the arm down for a little while, bringing it in front of you or behind you, those are all absolutely fine options. We don't want the arm necessarily to go numb from this. And so know that we're just getting it into the stretch, and as soon as the stretch changes to unpleasant nature, then that's where we can change. You're welcome to lean pretty far over to this left side, but try not to lift the right hip. If you're starting to lean so far that it's lifting, that's a little bit too much. I always think of my shoulders stacking, so I'm not just kind of like leaning over here, kind of like a sacrificed posture. Instead, I'm keeping the shoulders stacked. It's almost like I imagine that there's a wall behind me, and that I can just lay my back onto that flat wall. Sometimes it's helpful to gaze up to keep that stacked motion happening. So play with that. You don't have to. got about another minute left. See if you can keep the breath going. Are there any adjustments you need to make by this point? Those are always welcome to help our body be the most comfortable possible in a deep area. If you can take a very slow breath, we're about 3 more of those breaths left. As we start to rise, we start with the arm returning down and then press into this left hand to help the spine lift. Take a moment for the neck, rolling it all the way around clockwise and counterclockwise, making sure we're not adding tension to areas that don't need it. Let's loosen up our legs, planting them in front of us. Let the feet be narrow for this first one. Tilt the knees left, tilt the knees right. To just loosen up some of the tight areas around here. Good. Heading on to the second side. This time we've got the right leg on the bottom, left knee stacked on top, right hand plants, and then the left arm is the one that's going to make its way up and over. Once again, find a good place. Your sitting bones are grounded. Your arm is stretching, but know that you can adjust at any point, anything that would be helpful for it. And imagine light going to this half of the body as well. We're bringing those left and those right sides into balance here. Our breath. Is it stagnant? Is it kind of just getting in shallowly? Or are you consciously letting the breath go deep and full? Are there any adjustments that need to be made with that arm at this point to help you stay at your deep edge leaning, but also stay pretty comfortable? How is your back doing? Is it as if you're leaning against a flat wall behind you? Just check in with that part. Again, any adjustments that you need to take, even just kind of resting the head down on that shoulder, anything that feels helpful, take it. And here we approach those last 3 deep breaths. Let it be as much oxygen as you can get into the body. And a nice exhale. With the next breaths, the oxygen is light to this part of the meridian. After that last exhale, the hand rises. We press into the bottom hand, gently lifting ourselves up. The neck gets a chance to roll all the way around. other direction. Beautiful. From here, the next pose that we're going to take is double pigeon, and about halfway through we'll have an option, and this will be an extended time, but we'll have an option to then go into a full pigeon pose from it. And so we're going to come back to the left leg being on top, or sorry, left leg on bottom, right leg stacked on top. And so you've got this stacked position. Once again, if the stack is not working, come back to a cross-leg position. This time, from this stacked shape, we're going to let ourselves lean forward. So maybe you're just planting the hands on the ground. Maybe some people can walk all the way forward to elbows. If you have that bolster or block, sometimes people will slide that in so that the forehead maybe has something that it can rest onto. Giving it a break after that deep work that it just did a moment ago. You've got lots of options to play with. And so feel yourself opening. This particular stretch, we're adding it in for multiple reasons. First of all, any type of hip opener and leaning forward helps with those reproductive organs, but also, so we know that the meridian travels up to that area, but also this helps the meridian continue to travel up the back, up to that liver area. The liver is pretty much the highest point of our back right now. And so at that point, imagine with the liver elevated to such a beautiful high place that we're able to add so much light, so much love, so much detoxifying energy to that organ, that very important organ. So keep our breaths flowing as if you could breathe into that very liver. Obviously, the lungs don't quite work that way, but just imagine that with your breath, it's like you're sending light and energy and love to that area. We're staying here a bit longer. Keep on breathing. The breath is a beautiful point to focus on in meditation because the breath shows us how steady we are staying with this present moment. The moment the mind begins to wander into our shopping list, into all the things we have to do today, the moment it wanders like that, that's the moment where we begin to lose our connection with the breath. The breath returns back to its normal shallowness. We've got about 3 more breaths here before we have that option to head to pigeon. So keep this breath flowing. Right after that third breath, those of us who are moving on, we're going to take this right leg, the one that's on top, loosen it up, start to swing the leg all the way behind us. And some of us can just take a nice pinwheel shape with the right leg behind and lean forward. Some of us will straighten that right leg all the way to the back of the mat, lift your weight up and over, and then begin to relax back down. onto elbows, or even onto the bolster or blocks, whatever you're using. Any of these options are perfectly fine. Even if you stay sitting like we were, maybe you find a way to adjust in a way that's helpful. We're here a bit longer, so keep this breath flowing. How much can I be with the breath? Sending breath to the intense areas, making that change from both legs stacked to now the right leg being behind like this. What especially intensifies is this stretch all the way through that left hip. And so imagine we've got a lot of fascia, a lot of muscles that connect at that area. So imagine that you're helping all of that to loosen up. It's like it's creating space for the meridian to have blood flow to it very healthily. Lots of circulation. The very nerves are happy. That whole connection grid is very, very much happier, more connected, more spacious. With the breath again, at this moment, is it shallow or is it very full? Here at those last 3 breaths, try to slow the breath down as much as possible. Finish the last exhale. Gradually we rise up to the hand, let yourself sit on the left hip. Both feet swing around to plant in front of you. This time go a little bit wider than before. Before the feet were almost touching. Now they're a little bit wider than hip distance. And we let both knees go all the way to one side. Both knees left and go all the way to the other side. Nice and gentle with our body. Ready for the second direction. This time we have the right leg underneath, left stacked on top. And to add a little bit more focus on the toe part of the meridian, see if you can flex the foot, even pulling the toe up and back just a little bit. Not enough that you're like working and this is painful, but enough that you've got just a little bit of energy traveling down through the toes. Once you're ready, you can just settle forward, coming maybe onto the hands, maybe down to elbows, or maybe forehead rests down onto whatever you've got set up for yourself today. Lots of options. imagine you've got that liver right in that upper part of your back, that largest part of the lung. That liver is receiving the extra light and love. Imagine the pelvis is opening in a very deep way, very intense. What I love about pigeon pose is that part of the stretch suddenly gets so much more intense. That's where we take it with the leg all the way back behind. Breath into the belly, breathing light into the liver. And out. Breaths before we move on to our second variation. So again, as we begin to walk ourselves back up, maybe this is where you stay, making any little adjustments that are more helpful. Maybe this left leg begins to swing back. Maybe you stay at this point and just lean forward, creating a slight change there. Or maybe that left leg is traveling all the way long behind you. You pick up your hips to let them rest in this even floating place. Neither hip is resting all the way to the ground, but you're floating right at that in-between space. And then dropping down beautifully toward a sleeping pigeon. Maybe letting yourself rest down, the forehead resting on palms, forehead on blocks or your stack of books, whatever you gotta do. If earlier you acknowledged sensations of anger, emotions, just different sensations that are a little bit less pleasant that have to do, even just you intuitively sense it has to do with that liver meridian. Tune in with yourself now. Have things calmed themselves out a bit more. Just notice, be a bit more aware. We've reached that beautiful point, the last 3 deep breaths on this side. Once again, after that third breath, our hands plant. We rock onto the right hip, swinging both legs around, this time feet planting super wide in front of us. Once again, windshield wipers, both knees left, both knees right. point where if you have it at all, this is where we're going to try to use those props that we were getting, whether it's bolster, the block, the books, whatever you have, pull it right up to your side. And we're going to make our way all the way down to our backs. Once your back is flat onto the ground, you're planting the feet so that you can lift the hips up, and then you're going to try to slide your object right under the hips. So bolster, block, a stack of books, you've got something helping your hips to stay lifted up. So once you get into this shape, if you want to just stay here, that is an option. Otherwise, we're going to start bringing the knees into the chest. Once you've got that balance, start to extend the legs up to the sky. By the way, if you've got a block, you've got different height options. So you can be at the tallest height, but you can also bump it down to the medium or even the small height. It doesn't have to be a competition here. So here, we've got the legs floating upward. Once again, gravity working through the majority of the meridian down through the legs. Continue to breathe. This is an absolutely beautiful, fine spot to be because the hips are lifted. The biggest focus here is that we're starting to round through the spine even more, even starting to work on the upper part of that meridian where it starts to pass through the neck and pass all the way up to the eyes. So we've got this inversion set up where the eyes are the lowest part of gravity here. If you feel comfortable with it, you have the option to continue to introduce the legs closer to your body. So it doesn't have to be far. Maybe some of us are tilted a foot forward and that's the angle that's the best. Maybe some of us continue to let the legs melt further and further and further toward us. You're absolutely fine to stay with your hips on the bolster the whole time. That's the more gentle, slightly more restorative version of this. If there's a couple of you who want to lift your hips all the way off the bolster, coming in toward a plow pose, that is available as well. That plow pose starts to transition more of the energy toward the neck and toward the head, starting to bring more of the focus of the meridian down to that area. But no matter which option you're exploring here, imagine that you're adding health to the entire upper part of that meridian pair, adding health to the eyes. Maybe you're envisioning it like light still, so health to the eyes, health around the lips, health to the neck, all the way down the sides of the lungs and into that beautiful liver that now is the lowest, one of the lowest points of this stretch. The hands can absolutely be here, just kind of locked straight to help support the weight of the legs, or they can be down so that the legs use gravity to sink deeper. Your personal preference. Take a deep breath, seeing if the belly breath is still available. And try to set that up as a pattern. Deep belly breath, breathing into the body, and breathing out of the body. Our last 3 breaths at this shape. And after that third breath, the knees begin to bend again. 1 foot at a time, gently plants down to the ground. And once both feet are all the way down, lift the hips back up, removing whatever we've used as our implement. The blocks, the bolster, removing all of that off to the side. As we return the hips down to the ground, for about a minute to each side, we're going to take another last twist to each direction. So right knee is going to cross tightly over the left knee. Again, trying to get the knees as closely together as they can. That bottom foot, the left foot on the ground, helps to bump the hips about an inch to the right. And then as we spread our arms open like a figure T on the ground, both knees begin to fall all the way over to the left. So imagine here we're adding one last little boost to the part of the meridian that travels up to the liver, both the upper part and the lower parts connecting themselves together through the mode of this twist. Huge breath into the body. Wonderful deep exhale. And then begin that slow, gentle process of hips returning to the ground. When you uncross the right foot, recenter the hips into the middle of the mat. Then left knee crosses all the way over. Hips get bumped to the left. And this time the knees fall to the right. Imagine this last gift bringing balance all the way back to the liver. Deep breath all the way down into the belly. Slow release of the exhale. Begin to uncross the legs, return the hips back to the ground, recenter them. And here we begin to head in toward our final resting pose, our Shavasana. My recommendation for our Shavasana today is to have the legs be in cobbler's pose, the butterfly shape opening up wide. And so we take the bottoms of the feet together, the knees splay open, and in this way we're giving one last kindness to the entirety of the meridian that travels up the inner part of the calf and the inner part of the thigh. If this is a little bit too intense, another option you have is to grab that same block or bolster or stack of books and place them right under where your feet go. And so the feet are a little bit more elevated here. For me, this helps the low back to flatten a little bit more onto the ground, helping to make it just slightly more comfortable. And so wherever shape you ended up at, as we're here relaxing and breathing very deep and full, let's take one last moment to trace through those meridian lines, helping to imagine that we're adding a very line of light all the way around the body. And once we've traced it and added that light, then we'll just rest with that light glowing within us. So imagine the big toes. The A nice thin line of light travels through the inner part of the foot, up through the inner part of the ankle, the inner calf, the inner knee, the inner thigh, up the hip, and then back down around the reproductive areas. Up largely through the right part of the side waist, directly into the liver that's on the right side. Another area continuing from the liver up through the side of the lungs, up the side of the neck, branching off part of it to the mouth, and part of it up to the eye, both eyes. Now that entire line is filled with light. So visualize the light in your mind's eye, and almost like a night light, that light is shining brighter such that everything else around you goes dark. And you're being shown and guided with just the light of this beautiful meridian. So with this light in our mind's eye to help carry us forward, let's travel forward the next few minutes in silence, just letting our breath flow deep and full. Here, let's begin this slow process of returning up and out just by simply deepening the breath. Huge breath flows into the body. Huge relaxed breath out. Another. And with the next breath in, we begin to introduce little wiggles. The fingers, Wiggles back to the toes, ankles and wrists. Starting to stretch out like we're trying to wake up first thing in the morning. When you find yourselves ready to, begin to roll all the way over into a beautiful fetal position on one side. Pausing here, at least another 3 or 4 breaths before we come up to our comfortable seated position. Rising up if you feel ready. As the hands join together in front of the heart, we feel the liveliness of this liver meridian. We feel that detoxification, our spring cleaning, is already taking place energetically and physically. And so with this cleansing to help us transition forward, let's wrap up the time we got to share together with the sound of Om. Inhaling together now. Om. May we be filled with light and happiness and peace. Namaste.